But you're different than Judas, you and I. At least I pray we are. Judas has never bought into Jesus. Never bought into Jesus. And Jesus realizes that soon after selecting him. He says, haven't I chosen you, the 12? And yet one of you is a devil. Oh, Judas has been fine with all the miracles Jesus has done. All his popularity, Judas is fine with that. And the prospect of Jesus taking over the nation as Messiah, with Judas riding his coattails, oh, that's all great. But this crazy talk about dying, about paying for everybody's sins, and about taking up your cross and following him, hey, Judas says, if that's what everybody else is into, hey, good for them. It's not worth it to me, though. I'm about the here and the now. It's why Judas, the Bible tells us, has become a thief. As keeper of the money bag for the band of followers and of Jesus, he helps himself to what's put into it. See, Judas, Judas is a taker, not a giver. Now, who here has had takers in your lives? They weren't able to give, they just took. Who's had takers? All right, what did they take? Can somebody give me an example of something they took? Anything? What do you say, Julie?
My grandson took all my money.
Oh, man. Grandson took the money of his grandmother who raised him. Somebody else? What did they take? David?
Video games.
Okay. Food, clothes, video games. What else? They took everything. All right. Somebody else who's had to take Ellen?
We had people come and live with us on the farm.
Yeah.
When our house burned down, I came back a couple of weeks to order the roof and stuff, and some friends of ours were having yard sale with all our stuff.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah, we had this with us.
Jesus can relate to your feelings. We'll see in a minute. Man. Now, Satan has power only where sinful passions dominate. Dominate. That $10,000, it's calling to Judas. It is calling to Judas, and that's why Satan can enter him and why he'll do it again the following night. Judas gets wind of the authorities, their desire to snuff Jesus, and he figures there'll be some money in it. So he leaves Jesus and the disciples resting in Bethany, and he sneaks into nearby Jerusalem, 2-mile walk. He figures, if Jesus is so all fired to die, why not help him out and score a nice payday in the bargain? Now, we kind of had this happen at church one time. Kind of a similar thing. There. Going to mention any names. Got them all blacked out there. Well, we had this guy in our church, and he'd been shot by the police 7 times. He was in a shootout down on South Federal, one of those bars, the King's Court. And police brought him down with 3 bullets. And then they stood over him and fired 4 more, arms and legs, just to pay him back for shooting at them. And then he went to court, or he was supposed to go to court and appear on those charges. Well, he jumped the bond. And he was loose for a couple of years. And he came to our church then, and, you know, he was doing great. But I would talk to him once in a while and say, Rick, they're going to catch you. But he didn't want to turn himself in. So finally, on a Friday, remember when they used to put in the Rocky Mountain News, Colorado's 50 most wanted? Remember that? It works. $2,000 reward. So we all see it. The whole church sees it. And we have church on Sunday. He's in church on Sunday. And people from the church called me up because we were having trouble with our mortgage payment. And they said, Jack, why don't you go to Rick and say, hey, look, why don't we turn you in? They're going to catch you anyway. Why don't we turn you in? It's going to be win-win. We'll put $1,000 away of that $2,000 for you. After you do your time, it'll have interest and it'll be more. And then we'll use $1,000 for our mortgage payment. It was tempting to do that. I did talk to him, and what I said was, Rick, let us turn you in and we'll take the $2,000 and put it all in the account for you. But he didn't want to do it. What do you think? One of his relatives turns him in, sure shooting, and keeps the money. Not Julie, no, not Julie, sorry. And keeps the money, and he does his time. He gets out of prison, he's got zero. All right. So win-win, and that's probably what Judas is thinking, win-win. Jesus gets to die, I get $10,000 out of the deal. The next night, Jesus washes all the disciples' feet, including Judas's. Then he warns Judas in the most dreadful of terms. He says, woe to the person who betrays me. It would be better if he had not been born. I won't punish you, but you will. And he seats Judas that night. He seats him next to him in a place of honor at a formal dinner, the Last Supper, where he offers him what in that culture amounts to a sacred act of friendship. It's a last-ditch appeal. But you know what? It's not worth it to Judas. He wants the money. Keep the bread. But he takes the bread. He takes the bread, the Bible says, and as soon as he does, what happens? Satan enters him. That's right. He opens a door to the devil, only this time that door's not going to close. Later, Jesus goes to a garden to pray, and Judas knows where. So in a little while, we all know the story, clutching his $10,000. See the picture here? They got a picture of the money bag. Clutching his $10,000, he shows up with a posse. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what that feels like for Jesus? Alan, maybe you can, having said what you just said. And Lori, here comes my friend. I fed him. I've housed him. I've loved him. I've cared for him. I've taught him. I've invested in him. I've endured with him for 3 years. And he's kissing me? Really, Judas? Really? A kiss? Have you had that moment? Alan just mentioned he did, where when somebody you trusted and loved, they just betrayed you. You did what? We had it here as a church family. 2005. We had a young lady who was born here, and she had just come back to the Lord and was doing great. She'd been with us for a year, living with a guy who was a nice guy, but a drug dealer. And 3 of their friends, whom the mother of this girl had into her house, had fed them. Many of us know the story. Had fed them, had cared about them, had called them, had considered them friends. These 3 guys went to the Music Box Bar up there on 44th and Tennyson and plotted to steal money that night. I don't know if they were hopped up. I suspect they were. They break into the house. They break into the house as an invasion, and they put the young lady and her boyfriend, they tie them up, put them on the floor, hands behind their backs, and they ransack the house. I don't know how long they spent, quite a bit of time. They ransacked the house. They robbed it. And then she says to the boyfriend, they're going to kill us. But, she says, if they don't, I want you to marry me. But if they kill me and they don't kill you, I want you to become a Christian. So he gets around, they're both on their knees, gets between her legs and kisses her. And just then they come in. Pillow on the back of his head, pillow on the side of her head. 1, 2, 3, they count, bang. They kill him. They kill her. They think they kill him, but they grazed him. And he doesn't know if he's dead or alive because of the concussion, and the blood coming, but it's her blood. And so they leave. They leave the witness of who can incriminate them. They leave him behind alive. So, as you all know, he testifies and they get life in prison without parole. 3 friends who killed this woman. For what? For what? It's nighttime. Jesus says, oh, you came at night and it's dark. I've been preaching and teaching in the open during the day. Why didn't you arrest me then? And when have I ever carried a weapon? But see, it's not an arrest. It's a murder. They do it at night because everybody's at home in bed. Well, Jesus said, this is your hour when darkness reigns. And the darkness that surrounds us isn't nearly as dark as the darkness that's in you. And I wonder if he's looking at Judas as he says that last statement. So, Judas lets the mob walk away with Jesus. And as he clutches his $10,000 silver, $10,000 of silver, he says, it's worth it to him. Maybe for the other ones, although they're not here, they all deserted Jesus, I see. But for me, Jesus he was too much pie in the sky by and by. I have what I want, and so does Jesus, right? Win-win. Oh, okay. So if it's a win-win, why all of a sudden isn't Jesus feeling so great? Why is he talking about sin? But then he goes away and he hangs himself. Now Peter, when he messed up, later he ran to the tomb Easter Sunday morning to find Jesus. Judas runs to a tree. And we have people this morning, not in church. They were with us, they aren't now. Not in church doing the same thing. They're home punishing themselves for some Saturday night sin. When Jesus paid for it already. Judas hangs himself before Jesus is even sentenced. Before Pilate finishes questioning Jesus, Judas is dead. Before Barabbas is released, Judas is dead. Before Jesus is scourged with a whip, Judas is dead. Before the crown of thorns is pushed into Jesus' head, Judas is dead. Before they nail Jesus to the cross, Judas is dead. But the real tragedy is this. And this is what we're trying to tell everybody out there. That when Jesus looks down from the cross at those who've mocked and spit on him, at those who've slapped him and struck him, when Jesus sees those who pulled his beard, who've beaten him, who jammed that vicious crown into his head, and nailed him to the cross, when Jesus looks at the mob and cries out, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. When he says that, Judas is already dead by his own hand. He's missed the forgiveness. And he's missed the resurrection if he only waited 3 more days. And if he waited 2 more months, he wouldn't have missed the Holy Spirit falling on them. Not a lot of money these apostles made during life. Oh, no. And all but one of them was martyred. But was the war